Bad actions have a habit of leading to terrible consequences, and these consequences have a habit of showing up in the fight game. For this video, we're going to bring you some of the best moments that showcase this to the fullest. If there's one major trend in videos like this one, it's that you're bound to see some overconfident fighter running his mouth, telling his opponent that they could never beat him in his hometown. And look, you gotta be confident to do what these guys do. But if you write a check like that with your mouth, you'd better be prepared to cash it when it matters most. And in this case, the resulting performance was truly disastrous. Not only did he fail to mount any meaningful offense, but he succumbed to several knockdowns from his opponent before the referee mercifully moved in to put him out of his misery. So yes, he could lose in his hometown, as it turned out. Tony Bellew is a guy who has quite a lot going for him. He's a great boxer who did well for himself during his career, becoming a big-name star in the UK after beating David Haye, and he even played the villain in the Rocky spin-off Creed. But this was not a good moment for him. Taking on the future heavyweight champ Alexander Usyk, he promised the Ukrainian fighter that his power was the true difference between them both. And in a firefight, Usyk's lack of one-punch KO ability would be his undoing. Unfortunately, Usyk managed to prove him wrong, KOing him clean with, you guessed it, one big shot to finish him off. This was simply a bridge too far for a fighter like Bellew. He's undoubtedly a fine boxer, but Usyk still hasn't found his match in the world of pro boxing. And hey, at least Bellew has his movie career to fall back on, right? This next one was pretty bad. Not only did these two get on each other's nerves at the weigh-in, but when the fight started, one of these guys decided to try and taunt his opponent mid-fight directly after blocking a head kick. But if at first you don't succeed, try again. And at the second attempt, the head kick landed, bringing this dude's taunting ways to a resounding finish. An embarrassing loss for sure. And there really isn't a more definitive way to score a knockout in combat sports than an expertly timed head kick that lands right on the target. Looking confident pre-fight is a good way to try and intimidate your rival. But if that confidence falls apart immediately after things get tough, yeah, it's gonna be a long night for you. And that's what we saw play out here. This guy looked like $1 million before a single punch was thrown. But by the end of the night, he was nothing more than target practice for his opponent, making this a total one-sided beatdown. A short but interesting one next, as this heated weigh-in stare-down gave way to a fight that left more than a few people scratching their heads. This guy looked like he was ready to kill during those pre-fight moments, but after eating a pretty regular-looking jab to the face, he simply turned away and couldn't take any more. Call it what you want, but that was not a good look. Respect is a thing that often gets lost in the fight game, but when the guy you're facing is holding a championship belt, the least you can do is look him in the eye. It doesn't matter how confident you are. This guy decided to be a total D-bag during the final face-off. He acted like his opponent was nothing to him, miles beneath. However, as it turned out, he didn't have the skills to back it up, and when the champ landed with a ferocious head kick, there was no follow-up shot needed. This next one had it all. Shots after the bell, knockdown controversies, and a level of pure tension that you rarely see play out like this. In other words, this was a blood and guts war, folks. And when the killing blow landed, it was a shot that came after some real struggle, but it was a definitive shot. And boy, was it well earned. A wild back-and-forth brawl. This next guy needs to watch more YouTube videos like ours. Because if one thing's for certain, it's that the guy taunting his opponent's power, telling him to hit him harder on the chin, well, that guy generally gets slept. And when he does, he ends up on videos like this one. For a while, it seemed like he knew what he was doing. There was some solid momentum building as he absorbed punishment while dishing it out in equal measure. But when he fell, the uppercut that did the job was a thing of utter beauty. Look, if you're gonna talk some mad trash and give off an air of cool and total confidence, you'd better be able to handle the early shot to the chin. And in this case, it didn't take long for this fighter to eat his words. The first jab that landed sent him briefly to the canvas. But all hope wasn't lost, right? Well, unfortunately, this moment of survival just led to him taking an even bigger shot on the chin immediately after. And this time, there was no getting up. It was a one-hitter-quitter that sent this poor fighter directly to the shadow realm. Another total genius comes in next, who tried to tempt fate by play-acting in the ring, putting his opponent's power in question as he taunted him relentlessly. There's something very punchable about a face smiling back at you in the ring. But in this case, it was a brutal body shot that did the job, a thunderous blow that took all of this guy's energy and stole it from him in an instant. Seriously, this guy was asking for painful consequences. Trying to make a fool out of your opponent is never going to earn you fans in the way you think it will. Sure, you might get some viral fame, but if things go as badly for you as they did here, you're just going to end up immortalizing yourself in the sport for the wrong reasons. Take note, you guys. While we're on the subject of disrespecting your opponent, how about this guy's attempts to play the mental warfare game? This Ryzen pairing featured some pretty heated scenes at the weigh-in, and one of these guys committed the cardinal sin of putting his fist on his opponent's face during the stare-down. Maybe he doesn't fully realize that he'd have a chance to do it properly the next day, but either way, he was the one to raise the stakes. But when the time came to fight, it all fell apart, especially when the fight hit the mat. The quick submission came shortly after, and all in all, this dude probably had his cleanest punch at the weigh-ins. This is one of the sweetest revenge stories in the business, folks. Adrian Broner, who's a guy who knows exactly how to rub people up the wrong way. And in there with the icon Marcos Maidana, he was really bringing his A-game in everything but the boxing department. He wasn't terrible at first, but the taunting and the very disrespectful antics were definitely not helping his case with the general public. Maidana came out swinging like a wild man, determined to find a home on Broner's chin as often as possible. And man, did he put a beating on him. To his credit, Broner kept himself alive in there, just about losing on the scorecards instead of by finish. But the biggest hammer blow of all came in the 11th round, when Maidana used Broner's taunting against him, hitting him with the exact same level of disrespect. That's practically worth a TKO in my book. Size isn't everything in the boxing ring, and for this uber-confident fighter, all of that pre-fight trash talk didn't help him in his mission to beat his opponent. Sure, he had the size advantage going in, but it became very, very clear in the opening minute that there was a major technical advantage on one side. An early knockdown gave us a real sense of where this fight was going. And it didn't take long for this one to end. An absolute howitzer of a knockout punch brought this cocky fighter's night to a very sudden halt. This was not the type of knockout loss that you easily live down. A painfully one-sided beating. When you're taking on a rising young talent, sometimes it is actually in your best interest to try and rattle your inexperienced opponent mentally. Who knows what sort of weaknesses will spring up when you even the playing field a little. But Ryan Garcia was no ordinary prospect. And when the time came to deal with an opponent who wanted to talk mad trash, he stepped up to the plate and handled himself with a level of composure that was admirable. His opponent seemed to be feeling himself despite the fight not going his way. But in the end, skill won the bout conclusively. And while everyone knows exactly who Ryan Garcia is these days, his unfortunate adversary found fame in this moment for all the wrong reasons. This one was a unique case. Not only did the pre-fight press conference get heated due to the harsh words being exchanged, but this guy also decided to throw a cup of water in his rival's face, something that led to the entire stage nearly falling apart. Speaking of falling apart, this brash and overconfident fighter's defenses could not stand up to the level of punching power coming back at him. And when his punishment eventually came, it came in highlight reel fashion. As nasty a knockout blow as you'll ever see. We're guessing he had some major regrets after this one. Maybe he would have lost either way, but once you make things truly personal, you may well be forced to deal with the consequences of your actions. And finally, we come to yet another example of a fighter who made the critical error of provoking a reaction out of one of the all-time great cruiserweights and eventually a heavyweight champion in Alexander Usyk. This guy was really doing his best to get under Usyk's skin here. But if you know anything about this stoic Ukrainian future Hall of Famer, you'll know that he has a talent for keeping his cool under any circumstance. And while his opponent did his utmost to make him crack, Usyk just smiled in his face, confident that the real statement would be saved for fight night. Sure enough, when the bell sounded, it was all Alexander Usyk in there. He quite literally beat the brakes off this guy, eventually forcing the referee to get involved, saving his target from any more unnecessary damage. This guy might not get his chance to fight Tyson Fury just yet, but that's an era-defining great right there, folks.